born of spontaneous vaginal delivery with complaints of repeated vomiting of the breastfeeds immediately after the feeds. There is history of polyhydramnios in the mother in the antenatal ultrasound. The baby also passed meconium at birth. A chest X-ray was done and it shows the following finding. Which among these best fits the scenario? A. CDH. B. Esophageal atresia with a tracheoesophageal fistula. C. Hirschsprung's disease. And D. Esophageal atresia. Again, is an extension of the respiratory distress and vomiting in the newborn period. So the question clearly says it is a term male newborn, who is only 12 hours old, and there was a history of polyhydramnios in the antenatal ultrasound scan. The baby also passed meconium at birth. So immediate passage of meconium, no history of abdominal distension. So Hirschsprung is out. So the X-ray has bilateral clear thoracic fields and air bronchograms are seen till the periphery of the X-ray thoracic shadow. So diaphragmatic hernia is out of the question. We are left with esophageal atresia with a fistula and esophageal atresia without a fistula. So another point to note is that the clinician has put or attempted to put a orogastric or a nasogastric tube which is coiled in the upper pouch. Sorry, which is coiled in the upper pouch, and there is gas in the stomach. So all these indicate that there is a the continuity of the esophagus and there is air in the stomach, which indicates that there is a fistula or abnormal communication between the airway and the esophagus. So the option of esophageal atresia without TEF has been ruled out. This is a esophageal atresia with the tracheoesophageal fistula. Because it is important to preoperatively differentiate between esophageal atresia with the tracheoesophageal fistula and a esophageal atresia without tracheoesophageal fistula, which is also called a pure esophageal atresia. Why this is important? It is important because a pure esophageal atresia usually is a long gap atresia, meaning the approximation of the upper and lower pouches of the esophagus may not be possible in a single stage surgery. So these babies may require multiple staged surgeries, right? So let's go briefly into esophageal atresia. The incidence is 1 in 2,500 to 3,000 live births. Slight male preponderance has been reported. Antenatal exposure of the mother to methimazole, OCPs, alcohol, thalidomide, and maternal diabetes mellitus are known predisposing factors for esophageal atresia in babies. So let's go into the embryo pathogenesis. So as we discussed the development of the lung bud, this schema shows the foregut tube, and the yellowish structure is the foregut tube, and the blue is the respiratory diverticulum. The respiratory diverticulum forms anterior to the foregut tube as a outpouch initially. Then it grows downwards and splits into a left and right lung buds. Okay, so the respiratory diverticulum arises from the anterior or the ventral wall of the foregut. This is another MCQ. So the respiratory diverticulum then elongates caudally and simultaneously divides into right and left lung buds. Then simultaneously the esophagotracheal ridges which form on either side deepen, and the two tubes pinch out as the esophagotracheal ridges meet in the midline. So any failure of a complete separation of the esophagotracheal ridges to fuse in the midline and complete separation and the esophageal tube to occur leads to tracheoesophageal fistula. So the genes that have been noted to that have been implicated in the formation or occurrence of esophageal atresia are BMP4 gene and the Noggin genes. So let's go into the types of esophageal atresia. The first schema shows a normal anatomy wherein the esophagus, stomach, and the airways, the trachea and bronchi are separate. Okay, so the type A atresia is a complete separation, atresia of the esophagus, discontinuity in the esophagus, but there is no communication with the airway.